How would you characterize the brutality of the attack?
To have abducted her and then to strangle somebody to death, it was absolutely shocking.
You have a female victim, naked. It's a sexual assault, homicide.
No one could understand how something like this could have happened, let alone to someone like Joette.
Dad just collapsed and was crying.
When we saw my mom, oh, it was so crushing for her. A light went out. She was never the same.
Right after Joette Smith went missing, he left, gone.
The bad blood between them could have led to some type of confrontation.
If he got rejected, she said he would break things at the bar.
There was a mark on his face. He's got injuries. We need to look at him a lot closer.
Had you thought about what you would say to him?
It's horrible to say, but I hope he burns in hell.
It was just after 11 on a crisp early spring morning in Ben Lomond, California, when a man walking along the bank of the San Lorenzo River stumbled upon a sight that will haunt him the rest of his life.
It was a female body floating in the river.
Was it obvious to him that this victim wasn't alive?
He was able to see from her body that she was pale and not moving. She was deceased.
The woman was face down and naked, except for the boot on her left foot and an unusual ring on her finger. The man raced to a nearby phone to contact police.
What happened when emergency crews arrived?
Fire department was first on the scene. A couple of firefighters were able to bring her to the bank.
Shortly after the body was recovered, Santa Cruz Sheriff's deputies arrived. Sergeant Dave Devereux took charge of the investigation.
What did you see when you arrived at the scene?
I observed a young white female, notable injuries about the face and head. And there were marks on her neck that led me to believe that she had been choked.
Was it obvious to you that this crime was sexually motivated?
You have a female victim, naked. It's a sexual assault. And the homicide.
The lack of footprints, broken branches, or evidence of a struggle on the riverbank were also critical clues.
It became obvious to us that she wasn't killed where we found her.
Investigators focused their attention on areas where the crime could have taken place.
They came to this location, which is about 300 yards upstream from where the victim was located. They searched under the bridge here. They found a red scarf, a torn black bra, and a navy dress. Just below the dress, they found a black boot. They believed it was the same boot that was on her, and this clothing would have been her clothing.
Investigators also discovered some loose change on the ground. Those coins and other clues found near the clothes helped sharpen their theory of how the crime unfolded.
Where we found the clothing, the ground around it was disturbed. The clothing was tossed about in such a manner as to suggest that that was where the assault had occurred.
It's pretty clear that she had been attacked there and then her body put into the river to float away.
As investigators studied the location, it raised other questions that weren't as easily answered, including whether the young woman was walking over the small but well-traveled bridge above them when she crossed paths with her killer. Police know the key to finding the next pieces of the puzzle started with the victim's name.
Was there any purse or identification found?
We were not able to locate anything that identified the victim.
Investigators quickly formulated a plan.
Ben Loman's a small community. Decision was made, let's go ahead and take a couple of Polaroid shots, see if we can locate somebody that knows the victim.
Ben Lomond at the time was an incredibly small, tight-knit community. You could walk pretty much throughout the entire town.
Deputies went door to door looking for anyone with information.
When the victim's picture was shown around town, did anyone recognize her?
Several people ended up IDing her as Joette Smith, who owned a restaurant called Buffalo Gals.
Joette was very popular in the community. The locals loved her restaurant for her food. It was small. It was just her and one other employee.
The personal information was useful, but investigators believe that the location of the restaurant and its proximity to her home were more important.
She lived in a small cabin-type building within a few hundred yards of the restaurant itself. The restaurant and her home were less than 100 yards from the area where she had been assaulted. That really opened up a lot of avenues to us in moving forward with our investigation.
Police scoured Joette's home and restaurant for any clue that could be related to the crime.
What happened when you and your fellow deputies went to Joette's home?
A concern would be, did an assault happen here at the house? And that wasn't the case. I guess most notable is that it revealed nothing. We didn't come across any diaries or papers that would suggest problems of any sort. We seized the reservation book for the restaurant to look for names of people who might have been in contact with her during those final hours.
As police looked through the reservation book, they noticed that Buffalo Gals had been closed the night before. Still, they zeroed in on the names of any man who had been there. They wondered if one of them had a reason to hurt Joette. But for now, even that crucial question had to be put on the back burner. Investigators first had to face the worst job in law enforcement, giving the devastating news to the loved ones of Joette Smith. As the investigation into the murder of Joette Smith continued in Ben Lomond, California, 1,500 miles away in Omaha, Nebraska, those closest to Joette were just getting the tragic news.
Tell me about the day that you found out Joette was gone.
There was a knock on the door, and my dad knew many of the policemen in the area, so it was one of his friends.
The officer's words left Joette's father reeling.
Dad just collapsed and was crying.
It was shocking. It seemed surreal. It had to be somebody else. It couldn't be her.
But once the meeting with police was over, it was all too clear that Joette was in fact gone. The revelation was shattering.
When we saw my mom, that was probably the hardest, because that was her firstborn. Oh, it was so crushing for her. A light went out. She was never the same.
Joette was the oldest of 7 children that made her a third parent in a blended family. She was already a teenager when Annette and Yvette were born.
Despite the 16-year age difference, you were close to Joette, weren't you?
Absolutely. We'd cook together. She'd teach us her recipes when she'd come over. I mean, that's kind of how we learned. She'd just bring like a new angle with her creativity.
She always had something to introduce us to, something new, some experience or gift or stories. She liked to give people new things to explore.
Joette's love of new things led her to move to Ben Lomond. And once she settled in, she quickly began turning her dreams into reality.
One day she says, I think I'm gonna start a restaurant. We're like, you're what? It's like, do you know how much work that goes into that? She was so excited to do it. So of course we were behind her.
How proud were you of this new life she created for herself?
20-some years old and opening your own restaurant, and she was so happy. She felt like she fit in. She found her tribe, and she loved it.
Joette was extremely talented and driven. Her hard work made Buffalo Gals a major success.
She was the first farm-to-table chef that we ever knew about before it was popular.
There were people 2 hours away driving to eat at her restaurant for dinner.
Everything Joette had achieved in such a short time only made it harder for her loved ones to come to terms with her violent end. And there was little they could offer to police trying to solve her murder. Investigators hoped the medical examiner would give them their first lead.
What did the autopsy determine was the cause of Joette's death?
The autopsy showed that those marks on her neck were in fact strangulation marks, and her cause of death was listed as strangulation.
Was there any evidence of a sexual assault?
Yes, she had been sexually assaulted.
How would you characterize the brutality of the attack?
This attack was shocking to the conscience. The suspect probably was lying in wait, had to have abducted her to take her down under the bridge and sexually assault her, and then to manually strangle somebody to death, to toss the body into the river, just showing no remorse, no respect for life. It was absolutely shocking.
The autopsy report estimated that Joette had been in the water between 24 and 48 hours before she was discovered. Fingernail clippings and a sexual assault kit were collected, but investigators weren't optimistic.
Given the time frame in the river, there wasn't a great deal of hope that we would come up with much of anything.
What then did you have to go on in the early days of this investigation?
Our investigations were very much interview-based. We'd talk to friends and relatives. Somebody would point a finger and bring somebody in and talk to them with the hopes that something would come up.
In Ben Lomond, getting those answers was easy. Everyone police spoke with wanted to help them find Joette's killer.
No one could understand how something like this could have happened under their noses, let alone to someone like Joette.
Following those interviews, a timeline of Joette's last moments alive slowly came into focus. The chef had last been at the restaurant on Sunday night. Police spoke with a friend of hers named Rachel, who had hung out with Joette Sunday after she had gotten home from work.
What did she say she and Joette had been up to that night?
Rachel said that night Joette came home after work and they had some popcorn and drank wine and began watching a TV show together.
But Rachel wasn't feeling well and went to bed around 11 p.m.
Was she expecting Joette to go out that night after she turned in?
No, not specifically, but it wouldn't have been like Joette to go out.
Rachel said when she woke up Monday morning, Joette wasn't there, but she didn't make much of that.
Because Joette owned her own restaurant, the friend had assumed that she had gone to the restaurant. The friend didn't think it overly suspicious or odd that Joette wasn't around.
But once Rachel was told about the tragedy, she immediately gave police a new direction. She feared Joette had been killed by an ex-boyfriend. The two had broken up about 6 weeks before her murder, and it had been a stormy split. As investigators listened to the details of Rachel's story, they knew they now had their first suspect. Detectives investigating the murder of 33-year-old Joette Smith had a lot of questions for her ex-boyfriend, Miguel.
What did you learn about Joette's relationship with Miguel?
Miguel crashed her car, and she was quite irate. That pretty much ended the relationship.
And things quickly got worse when Miguel broke his promise to pay for the repairs.
What did Joette's friends say about how determined she was to get him to pay for the damages?
She was quite determined, but Miguel was making himself scarce.
Miguel hadn't given her a penny. And by all accounts, Joette was furious.
There's a belief that because of the bad blood between them, that it could have led to some type of confrontation.
And that theory gained steam when investigators learned that Miguel had already skipped town.
They ended up finding his current girlfriend, who said that he was up in San Francisco.
More red flags went up when police discovered that he had left Tuesday morning, just after Joette's body was found. But despite those suspicious coincidences, Miguel's girlfriend insisted that he wasn't the killer.
She alibied Miguel. They were together that entire weekend. The alibi was very detailed.
She was very cooperative, said she would take a polygraph to this information, and said she would have Miguel come back and cooperate.
Miguel's girlfriend passed the polygraph, and his version of the night in question was identical. The matching detailed alibis left investigators with no choice but to try and narrow the window of time in which the crime had taken place. They focused on what had happened to Joette after 11 p.m. on Sunday, when her friend went to bed. And a bartender from a local pub came forward and filled in critical details.
We had interviewed the bartender at Hen Flames, and she recalled Joette coming there on Sunday night, just after midnight.
The bartender said her last customer had left, and as she was locking the front door, Joette showed up.
Joette said she was looking to get a pack of cigarettes. Nothing else was open.
She let Joette in because they knew each other, and she sold Joette the cigarettes.
Did Joette seem okay that night?
Yes, she offered her a ride home, but Joette told her it was a nice night and she wanted to walk.
How far was Hen Flings from Joette's house?
From Hen Flames over to Joette's house is less than a quarter of a mile.
The walk home would have taken Joette right past the crime scene. Investigators asked the bartender if she had given Joette change from the cigarette purchase. Her answer was a major clue. She had given Joette 50 cents back, matching the 2 quarters investigators had found at the crime scene.
Why was the information about the change so important?
That was what led us to believe that she was attacked on the way home.
As Joette was walking home, she was accosted there at the bridge, drug under the bridge, assaulted, and murdered.
As police retraced Joette's walk home, it quickly became clear that she would never have been able to see her assailant until it was too late.
Was there any outdoor lighting around the bridge?
No, this area is really dark at night. There's a lot of places a person could have hidden.
But who could have known that Joette had to cross that bridge so late at night? Investigators turned back to the bartender story. They wanted to know the name of the customer who had left Henfling's right before Joette arrived.
She related that her last customer of the night was Bruce.
And there was more.
How well did Bruce know Joette?
They knew each other fairly well. Bruce and Joette briefly dated a few weeks before she was murdered.
This stunning detail made finding Bruce a top priority. And when investigators located him, they observed signs that he had recently been in a fight.
He had scratches on his face, and that caught the attention and the alarm of the investigators.
He's got injuries. We need to look at him a lot closer.
Investigators had a tip that allowed police to narrow the time frame in which Joette Smith had likely crossed paths with her killer. And that same conversation placed one of Joette's former romantic interests just steps from the crime scene during those fateful few minutes. But the investigation really shifted into high gear when detectives brought Bruce in for questioning and noticed that he had injuries consistent with a violent struggle.
Could Bruce explain the scratches on his face?
He told detectives it was from a bar fight, but they could have just as easily been a result from this attack on Joette.
Police remained skeptical of Bruce's story as they carefully studied the cuts on his face.
There was a mark on his face that was unusual. We said, well, wait a minute. She had a ring on one of her hands. And the ring had some very significant raised edges on it. So we're kind of looking at the ring, looking at the injury on Bruce's face, and kind of go, I wonder.
Detectives pressed Bruce about where he had gone after he left the bar, just as Joette had arrived.
When Bruce was asked about Sunday night at Henfling's, what did he say?
In talking to him, I go, were you at Henfling's that night? And Bruce goes, no, I wasn't there.
Did he lose all credibility for you at that point?
Certainly, he's being very deceptive about where he was the night of the murder. So yeah, he became a very strong focus for us.
Police arrested Bruce on an unrelated outstanding warrant. They obtained a blood sample from him and took a closer look at the cut on his face that may have been caused by Joette's ring.
We did some macro photography, trying to determine whether the injury on Bruce's face was made by the ring that Joette was wearing.
Police also did a search of their suspect's home.
Looking through his house, we came across a shirt that clearly had blood on it. We seized that shirt for further analysis.
The evidence had investigators convinced they were on the right track.
We've got a guy that's been lying to us. He's been involved in a struggle. And now we got a bloody shirt.
Police hoped that forensic testing would connect the blood to Joette Smith.
Whose blood was discovered on the shirt?
It was Bruce's.
And the lab couldn't say if Bruce's injury had been caused by Joette's ring.
Was there anything other than the circumstantial evidence that connected him to Joette's murder?
There wasn't. There was no physical evidence that they could make any connection to him.
We never came up with anything else that would tie him to it.
Despite all of Bruce's suspicious behavior, police had no choice but to move on. And just as detectives had closed one door, a new one opened. Another man linked to Joette, this one a firefighter named Mark, had raised red flags with the way he had continued to insert himself into the investigation.
Mark became a focus because he initially approached deputies and began speaking to them about the case, giving them possible leads.
He was asking for updates on the investigation, trying to provide investigators with tips about how to solve it.
And detectives were troubled by things Mark had said to friends and coworkers as well.
Mark worked for the Ben Lomond Fire Department and said he was initially dispatched to the call, but he was told to not respond because it was his ex-girlfriend, Joette. And what was so odd about that is no one knew Joette's identity within the first few hours of the investigation.
Mark also seemed to know things about the case that were closely held police secrets.
He knew that she was sexually assaulted, which is something that hadn't been put out public. He knew what kind of clothing she was wearing. He had told people that they need to check on her fingernails for the evidence that she had fought back.
He talked about the likelihood that she'd been strangled. And as a team, we're kind of looking at it going, we haven't released that information. That's not something that's known to the general public.
If Mark wasn't the killer, how did he know that specific information?
That was the big question for detectives.
Investigators brought Mark in for questioning, and he immediately denied having anything to do with Joette's murder.
He indicated that Sunday he was with his current girlfriend and that he wasn't anywhere around at the time of Joette's murder.
Did his girlfriend back him up?
To a certain degree, she said that they had been together that night, but then she had fallen asleep. It is possible that he could have left and she wouldn't have been aware.
And the young woman went further. She told police that she believed that Mark still had feelings for Joette and that he had anger issues related to drinking.
She described Mark as having an alcohol abuse problem.
We ended up setting up surveillance on him.
But nothing they found advanced the investigation. Within weeks, police had run into the same stumbling block that seemed destined to make Joette's murder a cold case. They still had nothing to go on, no physical evidence nor witness that could tie a suspect to the crime.
3 really hot leads that we thought we had all disappeared. So where do we need to go?
How difficult was this investigation when there was simply no physical evidence?
It was incredibly challenging.
And police weren't the only ones who were frustrated. The small town of Ben Lomond was trapped under a dark cloud of suspicion.
For a long time, I think people lived in fear, feeling really unsafe in this town that had been kind of like a utopia.
Everyone knew there was a killer on the loose, and most wondered if he would ever be caught.
Incarcerated in another state, came forward and wanted to provide information.
What was the tip that he gave law enforcement?
There had been a janitor working at a bar across the river from where Joette was attacked, and this male had a history of violent aggression with women.
The tipster provided deputies with the name of that janitor, Eric Drummond. Detectives followed up on the lead and discovered that he had been in Ben Lomond the night of the attack.
He disappeared. Right after Joette Smith went missing, he left, gone.
Investigators dug deeper and found one of Drummond's former co-workers who painted a frightening picture of his violent temper.
She said that he would break things at the bar when he would get upset. He often got into fights, and when women would come into the bar, he would ask him out on dates, and if he got rejected, he would get very angry.
And there was more.
She believed that she saw Drummond approach Joette and ask her on a date one time prior to her murder.
And Joette had turned him down. The story was chilling But it was Drummond's rap sheet that convinced police they were on the right track.
What did investigators learn about his criminal history?
It had a lot of violent assaults against women, kidnapping, a lot of cases that created red flags.
One crime in particular really caught the attention of investigators.
He was involved in a sexual assault up in Shasta County. He grabbed a gal walking to her Volkswagen, took her down into a ravine, very similar to what happened to Joette.
A female was abducted, taken down to a drainage river where she was physically and sexually assaulted. When I looked at Joette's case, I thought they were eerily similar.
The victim believed that Drummond was going to kill her. She caught a break that likely saved her life.
She fell on a bottle, she came up and hit him in the head, and it dazed him, and she was able to get away.
The woman hid in the woods while Drummond searched for her. When he finally left, she saw his car and reported him to police. Drummond was arrested, but the case never went to trial.
Why wasn't he charged with the crime?
The victim was unable to make an identification on him.
Still, detectives were convinced that Drummond's criminal history and his proximity to the crime scene were enough to confront him about Joette Smith's murder face to face. When they caught up with him, he was behind bars for a different violent crime.
Did you know the victim? Yes. And how did you know her? Did you ever have any conversations with her?
Then, Drummond went further.
He said he had gone to her restaurant to ask around on dates, and that she had told him that she would think about it.
Detectives asked Drummond what happened after Joette turned him down. Drummond's denials did little to convince detectives that he wasn't Joette's killer, but they still needed proof. And that left the investigation at the same impasse it hit with the 3 earlier suspects.
What happened to the case after that?
It truly went cold at that point.
Years turned into decades, and Joette's family wondered if they would ever know the truth.
Did your parents ever talk with you or your siblings about wanting to find Joette's killer?
My dad wanted justice. He wanted to find out who had done it. He had a lot of anger about it. My mom was more focused on the loss of Joette.
Neither ever saw their daughter's killer answer for his crime. But even after their passing, law enforcement remained motivated to find justice. In 2022, Sergeant Jeff Simpson and his cold case team reopened the investigation.
When you picked up the case, what made you think you had a chance to solve it?
The new technological advances in the field of DNA.
And investigators believed they had a viable source to find DNA when they realized that Joette's clothing had never been tested.
Why was the decision made to test Joette's dress first?
Our forensic technicians believed the best source of DNA evidence would come from the dress.
And that hunch paid off.
What was your reaction when the lab called you to confirm that male DNA had been found on the dress?
There was excitement. We knew that was going to be the killer in this case.
But police were stunned when the DNA was uploaded into CODIS and there was no match. The results appeared to eliminate their prime suspect, Eric Drummond. Then they made a crucial discovery. Drummond's DNA profile had never been entered into the national database.
We thought it would have been, just with all the cases that he had picked up in the late 90s.
And there was more troubling news. Drummond was now a free man.
He had moved on. He had a family, had a house, was working.
People had no idea that he had had this history. They knew him as a very friendly person. No one would have suspected that he may have murdered someone when he was in his 20s.
Investigators knew they now had to get a sample of Drummond's DNA if they wanted to make an arrest.
We had reached out to detectives in Washoe County, Nevada, who were willing to step up and really assist in this case.
Washoe County detectives knocked on Drummond's door.
The reason I'm here is California reached out to me. They're working on some old cases, and I wanted to know if you would consent to supplying the DNA sample.
I think I gave him one when I was in prison.
Okay. Would you be willing to provide one for me today?
Sure. Okay.
Drummond's cooperation surprised investigators.
I was concerned that he gave it so easily. It actually gave me some doubt that maybe he wasn't involved.
But the lab results put an end to Sergeant Simpson's concerns.
Can you describe the moment when it was confirmed that Drummond's DNA matched the profile from the crime scene?
Sergeant Simpson and I were in our office and received a phone call from one of our CSI supervisors, and she let us know that it was a match, and we were just so excited.
It was very satisfying, finally, after all these years, to come back and say, we know who did it.
But those feelings were about to change in a way no one could have expected.
What happened right before you were to arrest Drummond for the murder?
He committed suicide. My first reaction was anger to get a conviction in court. That's what we strive to get. And we felt the frustration that we were never going to be able to get that. And he had to tell that to our family.
Joette's loved ones, who had been crushed by disappointing news for decades, felt the sting of another blow.
What was your reaction when you got a call informing you that Joette's murder had finally been solved?
At first, he said, 100%, we have her killer. And then following that with, unfortunately, I have some bad news. He killed himself. He's caught. Okay, but I don't think I have closure.
Had you thought about what you might have said to him?
Yes, it's horrible to say, and I know this isn't very Christian, but I hope he burns in hell.
But after their initial disappointment, Joette's loved ones tried to focus on how they had been spared a painful trial and its gruesome details.
I was never wanting to see him in court. It's final now.
And that finality may ultimately be a blessing. Now, Joette's sisters can spend their time honoring a life well lived.
I miss her every day. I would love to have known what she would have been like now and what she would have accomplished.
How much a part of your life today is Joette?
We talk about her so much and have pictures around. We share stories, and it's usually a lot of laughter that we share, remembering her.
When the neighbor checked on Christine, what did she discover?
The victim lying on the floor. She had a large pool of blood around her head. It was a violent crime. You have a sex crime, and somebody shot her.
My world stopped. I would just cry.
Why would anybody do that to her? How could somebody take her life?
This man worked right next door to where Christine worked. He had a history of bad interactions with women.
Wow. It's an awfully big coincidence.
He said he's gonna kill again, and when he does, I'm gonna laugh.
He didn't look evil, but he did something purely evil.
What is the part of her story that haunts you the most?
Christine was a innocent young woman. I made sure that the jurors got to know who Christine was and who she would have been.
21st, 2001. It was just before 4 on a breezy Sunday afternoon when a friend of 25-year-old Christine Franke set off a whirlwind of activity at the Orlando Police Department.
What prompted her to call 911?
Christine's roommate was out of town for business, and she was unable to get a hold of Christine over the telephone. So her roommate called and asked her neighbor to go next door and try to make contact with Christine.
When the neighbor checked on Christine, what did she discover?
The neighbor knocked. There was no answer. She opened up the unlocked door, and right there in the hallway was the victim lying on the floor, face down.
Was it obvious to her that Christine was dead?
Yes. She had a large pool of blood around her head. She drops down, tries to lift her up. She's stiff. At that time, she's on the phone with 911.
Detective Roy Filippucci got the call and raced to the crime scene.
Describe to me what you saw when you entered the apartment.
Horror. The first thing I saw was a female with her pants pulled down, her shirt pulled up. Her head is towards the kitchen. Somebody shot her.
A .25 caliber shell casing discovered in her body supported that theory. As detectives surveyed the small apartment, they discovered additional evidence that pointed to how the deadly attack unfolded. Was there evidence of a struggle inside the home?
Yes, Christine had injuries on her face that were consistent with her fighting back hard. She had a large gash on the side of her head. She had 4 blunt force lacerations consistent with being hit with a hard object like a firearm.
Christine's neighbors told police she was a waitress who had worked the late shift at a nearby bar the night before.
She was still wearing the shoes that she had worn during this double shift that she had worked. These grimy shoes were still on her feet.
Police believe the dirty shoes were evidence of when the attack had begun.
Where she was found and the state of her dress indicated that she had been shot within moments of entering her apartment.
There appeared to be a backpack within 2-3 feet to the left of her, and items from inside that backpack were thrown out onto the floor and scattered, as if someone had gone through the backpack and emptied the contents onto the floor.
Christine's purse was among the personal items.
Did the purse appear to be rifled through?
Yes, it appeared to be emptied.
At the time, did investigators believe that robbery was the motive?
Robbery was the motive, but there was also the strong sexual component of the murder, with her clothes being taken off of her.
The crime scene painted a terrifying portrait of Christine's final moments.
In all of your years of homicide work, had you ever encountered such a violent scene?
Not that violent. We have a sex crime, a homicide, an armed robbery.
While police continued to process the scene, Christine's sister Barbara was still trying to get updates about what was happening. Each one got progressively worse.
How did you become aware that Christine might be in trouble?
Christine's girlfriend called me and she was freaked out a little bit. She said, I can't get a hold of Christine. I think something's wrong with her. I talked to the neighbor and she went to check on her and she couldn't get a hold of her since. My mind was spinning, wondering what's going on.
In fact, Barbara was terrified. She asked a friend to drive her to Christine's apartment. On the way, she reached out to the police.
I thought, well, let me call 911 and see if they know anything. And they connected me to the detective on the scene. And the detective just told me, he said, I'm sorry, there's no easy way to put this, but Christine Frankie's dead from a gunshot wound.
And you were still in the car when you were talking with the detective, correct?
Yes. I was crying, but there were no tears yet. It just happened that fast that like my body couldn't catch up to the emotion. Just unbelievably shocking news to hear.
And it was during that rush of pain that Barbara realized she now had to find a way to tell her parents
Hi.
that their beloved Christine was gone.
I can't imagine the pressure on you. You're trying to stay whole, but you were the one who had to break the news to your mom.
Yeah, that phone call was so hard to make. I remember I called my mom and I said, Mom, something's happened to Christine. She said, why? What happened?
She said, Mom, you better sit down.
I said, Mom, she was shot and she's dead in her apartment.
I said, are they sure it's her? It was like, you just can't imagine it. Why would anybody do that to her? How could somebody take her life?
It was a question all of Christine's heartbroken loved ones were trying to answer as they tried to console one another in the parking lot.
What is your most vivid memory of arriving at Christine's apartment complex?
The crime scene tape and police flashing lights all over the place. It was like a movie. You can't believe what's in front of your face.
The murder of 25-year-old Christine Frankie shattered her family.
How did the murder impact all of you?
It left a gaping hole.
My world stopped, but life didn't stop. I remember going back to work and I couldn't even look at people in the face because I would just cry.
And those closest to Christine struggled to understand how those tears would ever stop or how life would seem normal again.
There was never life without her. We shared a room until we were in junior high. She was always so cool. Everybody wanted to be like Christine. She was so much fun.
Christine had been working on her teaching degree. Her goal was to help children with learning disabilities. But those dreams would never be realized. As the investigation got underway, police had little to work with.
Christine went to work and she came home. She was attacked in her own home. It was a nice area in the city of Orlando, so it was completely unexpected.
Christine's autopsy helped fill in some of the blanks.
Christine had a single gunshot wound just above the lip, below the nose, and with the trajectory of the bullet going in and up towards the back of her head.
How would you describe that gunshot?
Based on the trajectory, I had two theories of how that happened. Either she was on the floor with her head up and back, or the suspect had Christine in a bear hug from behind with the gun pointed up towards her, firing that weapon, killing her.
She had absolutely no chance to survive this wound, did she?
Not at all.
The 25mm projectile the ME recovered was consistent with the shell casing found at the crime scene. Police hoped it might be a valuable clue.
A .25 caliber handgun was very rare.
Did they ever find the murder weapon?
No, we entered the shell casing into the national database, but never did get a match.
Although the medical examiner did not find conclusive evidence of a sexual assault, biological evidence was recovered.
It's clear that there was a sexual component to this crime.
Could a DNA profile be established from it?
Yes, back in 2001, the detectives and the state crime lab were able to obtain a full STR DNA profile for the DNA left at the murder scene.
What did the profile reveal?
The profile was entered into the FBI national database, and it did not have a match.
Still, investigators were certain that profile belonged to Christine's killer. They went to work retracing her last known movements in search of a suspect to test it against. Where had Christine been the night before?
She was at her restaurant that she worked at, and because her roommate was out of town, she figured this would be a great time to work a double and earn extra money.
How did her colleagues describe her behavior that night?
Everyone described that as a typical, normal night at work.
When Christine finished her second shift, it was close to 4 a.m.
In these videos, you can see Christine leaving her employment at 3:51 a.m. with her coworkers.
She is seen getting off the escalator with her supervisor. They follow each other for safety.
It was clear from the surveillance cameras that Christine entered her car alone.
Her lights go on the car. She leaves. But when you leave, you have to do a down ramp.
What happens after you see Christine's car come out of the parking garage?
There was a white car seen on the video driving around, and when Christine's car was leaving the parking garage, this white car was directly in back of her.
I thought that vehicle was a Moab.
Did the surveillance video capture a license plate?
No, couldn't get a tag, couldn't get make or model. And you can see one occupant.
Police drove the route to Christine's apartment and determined it would have taken her less than 30 minutes to get home.
Were there any surveillance cameras in the neighborhood?
No, there were no cameras at all.
Everything that happened between where she's last seen and when she's found is somewhat of a mystery.
Could police find anyone who saw a white car that night that they hadn't recognized?
No one saw a white car or any car.
But a neighborhood canvass added weight to the theory that Christine had been killed within minutes of arriving home.
Detectives canvassed the entire neighborhood. One person who lived up top there described a loud noise at about 4:20 or 4:25 in the morning.
The occupant said, I was awakened by a crash or something that was very loud.
How did that help investigators refine their timeline?
It is consistent with going into her apartment, putting her keys down, and then being confronted with her attacker.
investigators were about to get their first lead on who that attacker might be. As news of Christine Frankie's murder spread, tips began pouring in. Police were sorting through dozens of calls when an arrest moved one man to the top of investigators' list. Who was the first person of interest?
Gentleman that was a peeping Tom. He got arrested for looking into a window of a 14-year-old in the same complex.
He lived about 5 blocks west of where Christine lived.
In the interview, the suspect denied any role in the crime.
This was a shocking murder that was committed in the apartment complex. Were you surprised he didn't seem to be aware that it had happened?
Yes, he said he had no idea. He goes, I don't know her.
Police were skeptical, but a swab of the Peeping Tom's DNA made it clear he was telling the truth.
Were police able to eliminate him?
Yes, he was eliminated from his DNA.
Detectives continued to scour rap sheets and arrest reports for any potential suspect who might be connected to the crime. Then, several weeks into the investigation, their hard work appeared to pay off.
The man's name was Matthew. He lived around the corner from where Christine lived, and he had quite the history that piqued the interest of the detectives.
The man had been taken into custody for brandishing a knife.
Matthew walked into a big box store waving a knife and began screaming he knew who killed the lady around the corner.
When he got arrested, he said, I know who killed that girl that got killed. He said he's gonna kill again. And when he does, I'm gonna laugh.
But once the handcuffs were on, Matthew refused to answer questions.
So he didn't repeat what he had been saying inside the store?
That is correct, he did not.
And a quick look at Matthew's troubling history with mental illness led police to believe he might be a suspect instead of a witness.
Where did he live?
He lived about 20 houses away from where Christine lived.
This gentleman lived in a halfway house that was for people with mental instabilities.
He had a history of bad interactions with women.
Detectives dug deeper and discovered the halfway house couldn't account for Matthew's whereabouts on the night of Christine's murder.
Did he have an alibi for the night of the murder?
He did not. Witnesses said he left the halfway house and did not return.
He was gone until around 11 o'clock the following day.
Matthew became the #1 suspect.
Police had a lot of questions for Matthew, but they never got to ask them.
When they tried to interview Matthew, he asked for an attorney, and the attorney would not allow us to speak to him.
So essentially, from the time he was arrested, he shut down.
The only statements they received from Matthew were those spontaneous statements that he blurted out in the big box store.
After Matthew's lawyers secured his release for the incident at the big box store, investigators put him under surveillance. They hoped to surreptitiously obtain a sample of his DNA.
We have our people watching him. We got DNA of bottles, straws, plastic cups.
Detectives believed that Matthew's DNA would be a match to the crime scene evidence. But the testing results were surprising.
Were police able to clear him?
Yes, he was excluded as a contributor to the DNA.
The investigation began to stall. Dozens of vague leads were chased, but none moved the case forward. Then, one of Christine's coworkers mentioned a regular customer who made her nervous. Who was the suspect?
This was a man who worked right next door to where Christine worked. And he had asked her out on dates and made her feel uncomfortable.
No one knew the man's name, and there was no incident between them that raised red flags. The tip was added to the file, but it wasn't followed up on. In fact, it would be 5 long years before that story reignited the investigation. After the murder of Christine Franke, Detective Patrick Schneider took on the case. As he studied the file, he noted that neither old-fashioned police work nor DNA science had helped identify her killer.
There hadn't been any matches either through CODIS or through the elimination samples that we had been collecting throughout the investigation.
Detective Schneider focused on tying up loose ends in the reports, including images of the car scene following Christine as she left work. What did you learn about the white car that was caught on surveillance video the night of the murder?
That was one of the things that I ended up putting on my priority list.
As he isolated potential suspects who had not been cleared during the original investigation, his curiosity about the driver of that car grew.
Not so much because the white car appeared to follow her out of the garage, but because of the connection to her place of employment where there was an issue with somebody harassing her.
The lead about a mystery stalker had few details. The best clues were the description Christine had shared with her girlfriend and the name of the restaurant where she said he had worked, the NASCAR Cafe. It was just steps from Christine's job. Detective Schneider refused to give up.
How did you go about trying to figure out who he actually was?
I subpoenaed the records for every employee that worked at NASCAR Cafe leading up to the time of the murder.
By eliminating all the other people who worked there, we were able to identify this person who made her feel uncomfortable.
He was let go of NASCAR shortly after the murder. He was the right age, he was the right build, he matched the description perfectly.
And there was more. They found disturbing allegations of violence against women.
We had learned that this suspect was a suspect in 2 other sexual assault cases in the immediate area of where Christine's murder occurred.
Was he arrested for those attacks?
They were never able to develop the probable cause to arrest him.
Police read through the reports and came upon a shocking detail. When the suspect was brought in for questioning, he was in possession of a .25 caliber pistol. That was the same unusual caliber weapon as the gun used to murder Christine Franke.
What was your reaction to that?
Wow. I mean, it hits you hard when you see something like that and you say it's an awfully big coincidence.
Police quickly discovered more evidence that appeared to connect the man to Christine's murder, including the white car he drove back in 2001.
He had owned a vehicle back then that was very similar, same color, same shape, same style.
Police believe they now had enough unanswered questions to confront their suspect face to face.
In your mind, what made him such a strong suspect?
The fact that he had been a person who was repeatedly harassing her. There was the potential that he was in that white car and followed her home. He had a history with that type of weapon. All those things combined was just a little bit more than just coincidental.
But finding the man wouldn't be easy.
What efforts did you make to track him down?
We utilized a phone trace and law enforcement databases to develop an address.
Where did you end up finding him?
That is new residence in Lake County, Florida.
Did he ever acknowledge knowing Christine?
He denied knowing her, and that's what made me even more suspicious. There was no doubt in my mind that he was the person who was hitting on her.
Were you equally confident that he was her killer?
I believe that it was highly likely.
That hunch got stronger when the man refused to volunteer a DNA sample.
What did you make of his lack of cooperation?
I'm thinking, well, there's a reason he doesn't want us to have his DNA.
Then investigators produced a warrant that made his cooperation mandatory.
How did he react to that search warrant?
He was pretty angry. It definitely got my hopes up.
Police then sent the DNA in for comparison testing and began a painful wait for the results.
Take me back to that moment when the testing results came in of his DNA against the DNA from the crime scene.
He was totally eliminated. I was frustrated because I felt confident he was a really good suspect in this case.
Once he was ruled out, where did that leave the case?
We were right back to ground zero again. No leads to follow up on, no suspects, just a DNA profile located at the scene.
For Christine's family, it meant their long and agonizing wait for answers would continue.
I'm wondering, during those many years, if you lost faith that this case would ever be solved.
I thought, this person has to commit another horrendous crime. They just have to do something bad enough that they get caught, and then we'll know who did it.
They would call me periodically and say they had a picture of her in their office. They haven't forgotten about her, but there's nothing. There's no leads, no clues. You think that's it? I'm not going to find out.
You just figure out how to live your life knowing that you might never find out who did this.
The murder of Christine Franke remained unsolved for 11 years, until Detective Michael Fields decided to restart the investigation from scratch.
What is the first thing you did to try to advance the investigation?
I had to think outside the box. The traditional methods of using the DNA weren't working, so I had to find a different way.
At the time, consumer genetic ancestry services were just becoming popular. And Detective Fields was among the first who saw the possibility of using the public databases for law enforcement. In 2013, the plan was revolutionary.
I said this would tell me who his relatives are, and that would be a great start to finding out who the suspect is.
Had you ever done that in a case before?
No.
Fields teamed up with an independent lab to put his idea to the test.
You spent a lot of time building the suspect's family tree. What did that involve?
His family was extremely large and broken up. I didn't build a family tree, I built a family forest.
Detective Fields worked around the clock for months until he narrowed his search down to two brothers who both lived in Florida. He decided to target the one with a criminal history first.
How did you get his DNA?
Detectives were able to obtain his DNA from a Gatorade bottle at a work construction site.
Once it was tested, did you have the killer?
No, we did not.
What was your reaction when you found out that his DNA did not match the DNA from the crime scene?
Happy because I knew the last person left had to have been Benjamin Lee Holmes.
Still, at first glance, Benjamin Holmes was not the type of suspect investigators had expected. He had never been accused of a violent crime.
Benjamin Lee Holmes was an average American living in Orlando. He was a manager at a local fast food restaurant. He was just laying low, living his life.
But there was at least one detail that helped convince investigators they were on the right track. At the time of Christine's murder, Holmes lived just miles from the crime scene. Detectives hoped that a sample of his DNA would confirm their suspicion.
We had some surveillance set up at his residence, and Benjamin Lee Holmes stepped outside smoking a cigar and tossed it. And detectives were able to go obtain that and bring it back to the crime lab.
What did the testing reveal?
He was the person who left the DNA at the murder scene.
In November 2018, 17 years after Christine's murder, Orlando police arrested Benjamin Holmes.
It was full steam ahead.
In the interrogation room, detectives confronted him with the DNA report.
It says that you are the person that left his DNA at the crime scene. This is the apartment here. You've never been inside that apartment.
Did he ever admit to knowing Christine?
He denied ever meeting her. Let me show you pictures of Christine Franklin. Ever have any kind of relationship with her? Ever dated her?
Investigators pressed Holmes.
You're here because you murdered her.
I did not murder her.
You shot her. You left your DNA on the scene. It's been there.
But despite their frustration, investigators knew that Holmes' denials had actually sealed the case against him.
He tried to come up with excuses, but none were good enough. So, he was unable to explain why his DNA would be found at a crime scene.
Did he make any admissions?
Not a single admission. He never wavered from his position that he didn't know Christine and that he wasn't involved in this homicide.
Still, investigators believe they had compiled a powerful case against Holmes. He was charged with first-degree murder with a firearm. It was the news Christine's family had been waiting for nearly 2 decades.
What was your reaction when Detective Fields told you an arrest had been made in the murder?
I was so totally amazed and relieved and happy.
The rest of the day, I just couldn't function. I would bust into tears and laugh and then cry. Just so many mixed emotions.
Holmes was offered a plea deal in exchange for a confession.
He was given an opportunity to potentially reduce his sentence if he would sit down with me and Detective Fields and tell the story of how Christine died. He declined that opportunity and went to trial.
Prosecutors believe that Holmes' choice was a big mistake, and they proved it at trial.
The actual facts of this case are really as terrible as anyone can imagine. Christine was an innocent young woman with her entire life ahead of her. I made sure that the jurors got to know who Christine was and who she would have been, and who he took.
Your emotions are quite raw. When you talk about Christine, what is the part of her story that haunts you the most?
She was just coming home from work, and she encountered Benjamin Holmes, and she lost her life.
Christine's loved ones sat in silence, just steps away from the man who took her life.
He didn't look like pure evil, but he did something purely evil. Pure evil.
So many people showed up for Christine and were there day in and day out. There was always this support and love that touched me throughout.
Prosecutors, investigators, and Christine's loved ones all held their breath as the judge read the jury's verdict.
Mr. Holmes was guilty. The second that I heard guilty, just an absolute flood of emotion and relief. I took that moment to turn back and to look at the family and saw what that meant to them.
Christine finally got peace, and the family got peace.
How relieved were you when the guilty verdict came down?
I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to carry the burden anymore. I was thrilled.
Holmes was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
Did you ever see him show any signs of remorse?
Oh, not a single drop. Because he held his stance that he didn't do it.
Although Holmes has maintained his silence, investigators have a theory of how the crime unfolded. They believe Holmes targeted the young waitress, waiting until she was alone and vulnerable.
I believe that the sexual component was the main drive. He must have seen her at the restaurant and saw something that he had to have. I think that was the driving force. And the robbery was just a bonus.
Detectives believe it was the act of a selfish and callous monster.
I'm glad that he is incarcerated and unable to hurt anyone else.
Christine's family feels a deep connection to Detective Fields and the other investigators on the case.
I'm so grateful that he never gave up.
Although Christine's killer may be behind bars, the void left in their lives is just as painful.
It's not fair that Christine was taken from us. It's never going to be fair. But at this point, you can't get fair. You can only get justice.
We just keep the memory alive. And instead of focusing on the sadness, we try and focus on the good.
I wish she would have had a chance to meet my kids. It is a gaping hole in our family. I just miss her so much.
What did you think you were dealing with?
With the ligature around her neck, her pants down, it appeared to be a sexual predator.
It was very violent. She went through hell out there.
We knew that it was somebody that was really sick.
We had daughters that were in fear of their safety.
There was a lot of concerned people.
He was a very evil person. Just pure evil.
Another girl was murdered. This happened again in our town. It was a shock.
They were similar in age. They were in close proximity of each other.
Both had been strangled using an article of clothing.
We thought that those two cases were connected.
Investigators looked at people who had violent sexual assault convictions to see if they were involved.
How real was the fear that whoever killed Christina and Kimberly would strike again?
It was a real concern because if we don't find him, he would kill again. This guy's not going to stop.
It was 1:30 on a dreary winter afternoon when police got a disturbing 911 call from a hunter that would force them to confront something far worse than just the elements.
What did he report?
Walking through the state game area in Livingston County, he had come across a half-clothed female found deceased in a wooded area.
At the time, Detective Bob Bazat had no idea he was about to embark upon an investigation that would haunt him the rest of his career. But one glance at the victim was all it took.
Was it obvious to you how she was killed?
We saw the ligature around her neck, her pants and underwear were down, so it was pretty obvious as we approached her what we were dealing with.
What did you think you were dealing with?
Sexual predator, definite homicide.
Although the crime scene was troubling, investigators like Ed Moore knew that every piece of evidence they found might be the one that put a killer behind bars.
My initial responsibility was taking pictures of the scene and then processing the scene.
How would you describe the position her body was found in?
She had no clothing from the waist down. She was dressed from the waist up. She had on a black t-shirt, a hooded sweatshirt, and then she had a coat that was pulled down behind her back, but her wrists were still in the coat. Below her right shoulder was her bra that had the straps torn off and was tied in a knot.
Could you tell how the victim had died?
Yes, she had one of her socks tied around her neck.
Detective Ed Moore carefully collected the other articles of clothing scattered near the victim.
Her blue jeans and one shoe and sock was within 10 to 15 feet to her left side, and her other shoe was approximately 35 feet away from her.
The evidence told a grim story, and the thin layer of wet snow on top of many of the items helped pinpoint when the attack had taken place.
On the 20th of March, we received about 6 to 8 inches of snow during that snowfall.
But it hadn't snowed again for more than a week.
So we figured that she was at that spot before the snow started because she didn't have any snow underneath her.
Police studied the ground around the area for additional clues.
Were there any obvious signs of struggle in the area around where her body had been found?
We didn't see any areas of struggle. The weather probably helped compromise it. There was no indications, any shoe impressions around her body.
Could you get any sense if the murder happened there or if the body was just disposed there?
We figured that the body was disposed there. She was placed there.
The murder could have happened just about anywhere?
Yeah.
And the lack of a crime scene was just one of the factors that made it clear the investigation would be challenged.
Did the victim have any identification on her?
No, and we had not heard any reports, so we didn't know where she was from.
Investigators could only hope that a review of the statewide missing persons database would fill in some of the blanks. Meanwhile, the victim's body was transported to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy.
What did the medical examiner determine was the cause of her death?
The medical examiner listed it as a ligature strangulation homicide.
Were there any obvious defensive wounds on her body?
No.
The ME's findings also confirm the motive for the attack.
The medical examiner concluded that she was sexually assaulted.
Was biological evidence found?
Yes, it was.
We took semen, but technology wasn't really what it is today.
What was the best you could hope for through testing of that evidence?
Back then, all you're identifying is a blood type.
The troubling evidence detectives saw at the crime scene and the details in the ME's report weighed heavily on them.
This could very easily have happened to any of our daughters. It becomes much more personal. I had 3 daughters, so it gets to you.
Not only being sexually assaulted, but being strangled to death with her own clothing and then being left in a field. She went through hell out there.
While detectives struggled to put those emotions aside, their colleagues had uncovered a solid lead. Reports of a missing teenager who had disappeared from a neighboring community 9 days before their Jane Doe was found.
She was taken from Redford, Michigan, which is about 50 miles from Howell.
The missing person in that case was 19-year-old Christina Castiglione, and the photograph officers were given erased any doubt that she had been the victim found in the field. That meant detectives now had to perform the most gut-wrenching job in law enforcement, telling the young woman's family that she was never coming home.
It gets pretty emotional. It's heartbreaking.
When police arrived at the Castiglione's home, loved ones were still praying for Christina's safe return.
Were you all at home together when the officers broke the tragic news?
Yes. When I saw them all walking up the driveway and the priest was with them, I thought, this is not good. They're coming to say that they found her.
The news of Christina's death shattered her family.
I do remember my dad hollering at the priest and told him to get the hell out of his house, because if there was a God, his daughter would be with him today.
For Anna, then just 20, it seemed impossible to believe that her younger sister was gone.
It was a hectic time. We had detectives in and out of the house. It was a shock.
Christina had just graduated high school. She was loved by everyone she knew.
How would you describe Christina's personality?
She was a very social person, very caring, loved animals, loved children. She did a lot of sports. In the summertime, she would teach children basketball. Just a real good person.
But instead of looking forward to a lifetime of celebrating birthdays and milestones with her sister, Anna was now answering questions about who might have wanted Christina dead.
They were talking to me about people I used to know. I said, I have no idea who did this. Everybody loved her.
Anna and her parents told police that Christina had no enemies, and there was no reason for her to have been in that state park 50 miles away.
We had no idea why she would have been where she was found.
Still, detectives believed that if they could uncover how she had ended up in that remote area, it might point them to a suspect.
I'd say 95% of the time in homicide cases, the victim knows the suspect. It's not just a random type deal.
Who did you think could have been responsible for such a violent attack?
At that time, we weren't really sure. We just knew that it was somebody that was really sick.
Police investigating Christina's murder went back through her missing persons case file and read it cover to cover. It was already more than a week since the teenager had disappeared, so Detective Bob Bazat knew he was playing catch-up.
What were some of the first steps you took in the investigation?
We were trying to talk to as many people as we could, tracing her steps. Who was the last person that's seen her?
Redford Township worked with us on trying to piece back together what may have happened.
The mystery began on Saturday evening, March 19th. Christina had spent the afternoon socializing with the girls, but as the sun went down, she was ready to head out.
She had been at a friend's house waiting for her boyfriend to pick her up. And then her boyfriend didn't show up.
Christina eventually decided to make the short trip back home on foot.
She was walking towards our house, and she stopped at a payphone and called one of her friends who lived 2 blocks away from us, said, "I'm coming to your house."
That call was the last time anyone spoke with Christina. But it wasn't the last time she was seen.
Who was the last person to see Christina?
The last person to see her would have been her boyfriend.
According to Christina's boyfriend, he had seen her from a car he was in with several people as she made her way up the road towards her friend's house.
What time of night was this?
She was seen walking on 5 Mile Road at about 8 p.m.
How would you describe the road?
5 Mile Road is a very suburban road. There were streetlights. It was a very well-traveled area.
Investigators were puzzled and had a lot of questions for Christina's boyfriend about what happened next.
Why didn't he pick her up?
He was in a vehicle with a bunch of his friends, and Christina didn't necessarily like the friend group that he was associated with, so he had chose to pass her and then got dropped off at a party store less than a mile down the road and waited for her to arrive as she was walking in that direction.
Did she ever make it to the party store?
She did not.
So within minutes of his driving by her, she disappeared?
Yes.
Christina's boyfriend said he tried to find her.
He started walking back towards her, and he went to several houses around the area, people that they kind of hung out with. They were looking for most of the night.
None of the friends had reported seeing her, and then the next day is when she was reported missing by her parents.
Officers fanned out and retraced Christina's last known movements.
Redford Township knocked on every door. They checked with hospitals, her employer. They were on the case and they were working hard at it.
But there were no sightings of Christina, nor a single clue as to her whereabouts, until her body was discovered 50 miles away. Now, as homicide detectives took over the investigation, they believed the place to start was clear. They needed to have a face-to-face meeting with Christina's boyfriend.
When you first heard his story, were you surprised that on a cold night he didn't pick her up?
The story from the boyfriend didn't make sense.
The fact that he had bypassed her and then got dropped off down the road rather than stopping and getting out right where she was at definitely threw up a red flag for investigators.
You try to put yourself in that spot. I'm thinking, man, I would have stopped. Why didn't he stop? That's very suspicious.
Was it possible that he was making up that story to cover his tracks?
100%. That's what we thought.
And her boyfriend's credibility came further into question once they heard why he and his friends had driven past Christina.
They were doing drugs. He had promised her that he wouldn't hang out with these guys because of his drug issues.
He himself had a drug problem.
Those details added to detectives' concerns. And since they knew that most lies contained an element of the truth, they wondered if what really happened that night was that Christina had seen her boyfriend in the car, and when he met up with her, she was angry about his broken promise. If so, had a heated argument ensued, which led to something tragic.
Did he have a window of opportunity to have killed Christina?
Yes, he would have had a window to kill her. She wasn't reported missing until the following day.
Christina's loved ones had reached a similar conclusion.
Did your family believe he was involved?
My father did right off the bat.
And now investigators wondered if the physical evidence they had collected would prove those suspicions were right.
He looked like a prime suspect, obviously.
Investigators trying to solve Christina Castiglione's murder hoped the crime scene evidence would help strengthen the case they were building against her boyfriend. But forensic testing in 1983 wasn't nearly as conclusive as it is today.
All they could do was blood type it. They couldn't do anything more than that. They knew that the suspect was type A.
Did his blood type match the evidence in the case?
It did.
But investigators also knew that type A blood was extremely common, and the match wasn't strong enough evidence to arrest Christina's boyfriend. Police spent hours in the interrogation room trying to find a hole in his alibi. But the emotional young man stuck to his odd story about riding past her just moments before she disappeared. And surprisingly, the timeline they developed through witness accounts seemed to back it up.
Friends she associated with confirmed that he did, in fact, go within the Redford area looking for her that night.
His interview, his statement, everything kind of fit.
Police discovered there was actually no period of time where he was alone long enough to have traveled 50 miles to dispose of Christina's body. Still, investigators were eager to see what happened when the young man was given a polygraph.
When Christina's boyfriend took a lie detector test, what were the results?
His results came back as him being truthful.
He passed with flying colors.
And police also tested anyone who was with Christina's boyfriend that night.
Once we got their statements and then they passed polygraph tests, we were comfortable that he was not involved.
The results put investigators back at square one.
What did investigators really have to work off of? Just the boyfriend's statement that he had seen her walking, but she never showed?
That was it. There was no evidence. There was no eyewitnesses. The main theory was that she was abducted into a vehicle. It was just whether or not it was a stranger or somebody she knew.
Could you find anyone who would have had a reason to hurt Christina?
There was a lot of time and effort put in just trying to develop suspects, but we couldn't find anybody that would want to harm Christina.
It was difficult because how do you investigate something where there's no evidence and there's no tips? It's basically boots on the ground, detectives knocking on doors.
Everything was a dead end.
Desperate for a lead, investigators turned to the State Police Behavioral Science Unit, hoping they could learn more about the type of person they were looking for.
Did investigators believe that whoever killed Christina had likely killed before?
Yes, they believed that it was somebody who had done this before, somebody who had propensity for violence, somebody who was a sexual deviant.
Detectives poured through dozens of case files from crimes in the surrounding areas, searching for attacks that might match their killer's MO. And their hard work paid off when they discovered an eerily similar abduction and murder of a 16-year-old that had taken place a year before Christina's murder. In fact, the deeper they dug into the attack, the more likely to see had been committed by the same perpetrator.
Similar circumstances, a similar age female had gone missing. Both of them had family in the same area at the time, and both were found deceased, sexually assaulted.
The locations they were taken from, it just kind of made sense that they were connected.
It seemed like the clues were a huge break in the case. If investigators were right, they were now on the hunt for a deadly predator who had already killed 2 young women. But it also raised a chilling question. Was it just a matter of time before he struck again? As investigators continued to work around the clock trying to solve the murder of Christina Castiglione, their focus shifted to a brutal homicide that had taken place almost exactly 1 year before. The victim in that case was 16-year-old Kimberly Louiselle.
What were some of the similarities between Kimberly and Christina's cases?
They were similar in age. They looked very similar and were in close proximity of each other.
The operating theory at the time was that she was abducted into a vehicle.
And just like Christina Castiglione, Kimberly's body had been found partially clothed in a field far away from where she was last seen.
Both of them ended up in 2 separate state-owned lands.
According to the medical reports, she had been beaten, she had been repeatedly raped. It was a brutal end of Kim's life.
And there was more. At the time they disappeared, both teenagers were walking home after a ride they had expected never arrived. In fact, police were convinced that Kimberly was abducted after using a payphone not far from where Christina had disappeared.
She had made several calls to try to get someone to pick her up.
So witnesses actually remembered seeing her?
Correct. We had one witness that described someone matching Kim's clothing half a mile west of where that phone booth was.
Were their manner of deaths also similar?
Yes, both had been strangled using an article of clothing of theirs.
All of those little things we look at as pieces of a puzzle when we thought that Christine and Kim's case were connected.
Even though police had no physical evidence to back up their theory, the cases were investigated as one, and that opened up new avenues for detectives to explore.
Did you look into any of the suspects in Kimberly's case?
We did. We started working together with the state police. We were trying to cross investigations and suspects and see if there was any connections.
They were even interviewing Kimberly's ex-boyfriends and her family about Christina to see if there was any ties that they could find there.
Did they know each other?
By all accounts, they did not.
Was there any detail from Kimberly's case that helped move Christina's case forward?
No, nothing that really helped push Christina's case forward.
Police found the lack of progress troubling. And it was even more disturbing for the parents of teenage girls in Livingston County who were forced to wonder if their child might be next.
There was a lot of concerned people when you'd walk down the street and people knew that you were law enforcement, wanting to know, have you found anything?
We had daughters that were in fear of their safety. The urgency was very high. You have 2 victims, and this guy's not going to stop unless he's caught.
Did any promising tips come in?
None. The tips that came in were people who believed they saw something, who wanted to give a name that they thought of, somebody who could be involved, but ultimately they were all ruled out.
For detectives like Bob Bazat, every name scratched off the list was painful. The unsolved cases never left his mind.
Is it true that you've had a picture of Christina on your desk?
Yeah, just as a reminder to make sure I did something every day on her case.
Nothing detectives did brought them any closer to identifying a suspect. It was a helpless feeling.
Anytime that you can't bring closure to a family on something this horrific, it is frustrating because you're looking for answers to help the family.
But police had nothing that even resembled an answer. And with each passing day, their fears of the call that would report the killer's next victim grew. Detectives were very concerned that they had a serial predator on their hands. Did he strike again?
He did not. It just stopped in 1983.
Did that surprise them?
It did. Investigators just didn't understand how one person did multiple murders and then just stopped.
Although detectives were obviously relieved that no more teenagers were murdered, it also meant that their chances of finding a vicious killer were slowly fading away. Did the investigation hit a standstill?
Yeah, in about 1986, tips stopped coming in. There was nothing really more to follow up on. DNA technology still had not progressed to where we could do anything more with the evidence. The case had gone cold at that point.
What did you think needed to happen to solve the case?
A miracle, honestly, a miracle. The detectives on these cases poured their heart and soul into them, and for some reason they were just unable to find that missing piece. You know there's something out there. It's just a matter of trying to find it.
But for decades, the big break investigators needed to crack the cases remained out of reach.
Just how determined were you to try to bring the family some answers?
I was very devoted to the case. You looked at the physical evidence, you looked at the interviews, the polygraphs, everything together, and you're saying, okay, what am I missing here? You have other detectives come in and you say, okay, these are the facts. Any more ideas?
Did you lose faith that the case would ever be solved?
I wouldn't say I lost faith. I knew in my heart they were still trying to find who did this.
But that faith only made investigators feel worse when it became clear that the answers everyone so desperately wanted would not arrive in time to ease the pain of Christina's parents.
One of the saddest things about this whole story is the mom and dad both passed away.
My mom had said she just wished she knew what happened to her daughter. And then my dad was the same way. The night before she passed away, I told her, go see Christine.
Still, Anna remained committed to getting justice for her sister and Kimberly. And so were investigators. And the evidence they needed to officially connect the two murders and find a vicious killer was almost within reach. The investigation into the murders of Kimberly Louisel and Christina Castiglione were a top priority for the cold case task force investigating them. They believed solving one would ultimately lead to justice for both. But for now, Christina's case held the most promise.
When you looked into Christina's case for the first time, did you really think it could be solved?
I did. This is the only cold case that we had in Livingston County that had DNA evidence. And I started really looking at what you could do with DNA.
The team hoped that the development of CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database, would be the key to identifying a suspect.
Investigators were so hopeful with CODIS technology that we would have a known offender.
When the unknown profile was entered into CODIS, was there a hit?
There was not. No hits came back.
Cold case investigators went back to the beginning and attempted to review the massive case files. But the process was incredibly time-consuming.
Our cold case files are unorganized. We have papers and binders and boxes full of stuff.
The problem seemed like it might overwhelm the effort until Detective Sergeant Larry Rothman reached out to the Michigan State University's Criminal Justice Program.
What kind of help did you need from the students?
Helping to organize the cases and helping to find out what we're missing.
The students digitized every report into an easily searchable database. It made all the hard work done by previous investigators available to the team with a single keystroke. And from the start, it was obvious what the biggest hurdle would be: finding physical evidence that would confirm investigators' decades-old theory that Kimberly Lewisell's unsolved murder was connected to Christina's.
What did you see as your biggest challenge?
We had a lot of physical evidence, but we had no DNA.
Sergeant Rothman checked his newly compiled evidence list, looking for something that could be submitted to the crime lab. But the technicians he spoke with weren't optimistic.
If you look at a case 40 years old, we were told that it would be one of those needle in a haystack type of situations.
But despite the long odds, the lab agreed to process every item. While he waited for the result, Sergeant Rothman turned to his faith.
I've been praying that if there was any evidence there whatsoever, that God would reveal that.
Then, a few weeks later, his phone rang.
Take me back to the day when you got the results from the testing on that email case.
We have a connection between the Lewisell case and the Castiglione case. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. For me, it was an answer to prayer.
So it in fact was the miracle that you thought it was going to take to solve this case.
It was. It was a miracle. I think it's pretty clear that's what it was.
A miracle that would allow the two cases to be prosecuted as one if they ever found the man responsible.
All of these cold cases were being solved through forensic genealogy. That's when we pursued that process.
The DNA evidence was sent to a private forensic lab that created a massive family tree related to the suspect. Investigators painstakingly whittled the list down until they reached their goal.
Only one name really stood out.
What was his name?
Charles David Shaw.
As detectives dived into Shaw's past, they were convinced they were on the right track.
What did you find out about him when you looked into his background?
I started looking in all of my databases, and we immediately located an arrest record in 1981 where he was arrested for attempted abduction of another female.
What were the details of that attack?
The woman reported that she was in the McDonald's parking lot in her car, and a male approached her at her driver's side window and sprayed some sort of chemical irritant into her face and then tried to pull her out the window of her vehicle.
The victim managed to fight off Shaw, and as he fled the scene, she got a good look at his car.
She was able to get a good make and model of the vehicle as well as a license plate, and investigators caught up with him a short distance away from where the incident occurred and arrested him.
And how much time did he serve in prison for that?
He actually didn't go to prison. He spent about 2 weeks in the Livingston County Jail and pled his case down to 2 years of probation.
And there was more. During his probation, Charles Shaw lived and worked in the area where both Christina and Kimberly were attacked.
Charles David Shaw actually resided on the same street as Kimberly Lewisell's boyfriend. Then he later got an apartment within a mile of where Christina lived with her parents.
What went through your mind when you saw that in the file?
I knew it was him. It made perfect sense.
After 4 long decades, the pieces of the puzzle had finally come together.
Based on the evidence you had against him, did you think you had enough to charge Shaw with murder?
Absolutely.
That's when Sergeant Young discovered a devastating detail.
We learned that he had died in 1983.
How disappointing was it to learn that he had died?
It was disappointing because I wanted to be able to put handcuffs on this guy and put him in jail. But there is some solace knowing that he's probably burning in hell right now.
Investigators learned that at the time of his death, Shaw was a deeply troubled man, living alone, tormented by his own psychological issues.
Charles Shaw's family was very, very cooperative with us. They told us that he had problems.
He was a disturbed young man and things going on within him that drove him to do these type of crimes.
Still, Shaw's death, just over a year after Christina's murder, helped explain two of the biggest mysteries on the case: why the attacks had come to such a sudden end, and why Shaw's DNA never made it into CODIS. Is there any doubt in your mind that if Shaw had lived, that he would have murdered again?
He absolutely would have. You could see from 1981 until Christina's death that his propensity for violence was increasing. I think he would have continued along the manner that he was going. He was a very evil person, just pure evil.
Shaw's death also meant there are questions that will never be answered. In particular, how and why Shaw targeted the two teenagers.
What do you think happened on the night of Christina's abduction and murder?
I believe, based on the 1981 case and the way that he operated, that he used some sort of force to control Christina and order her into his vehicle. And then from there, she was killed and sexually assaulted.
And just like Kimberly Louiselle, Christina was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time.
He saw her alone and took the opportunity to victimize her.
For Sheriff Babazat, it was the end of the most painful case of his career.
How satisfying was it to bring the family some answers?
You finally know what happened. Try to bring a resolution to the family. As any detective out there that's worked on these cases, you know it gets to you.
I can see it cuts you deep.
It does. Makes you appreciate family a lot more.
And those deep emotions made investigators meeting with Anna Castiglione a moment no one will ever forget.
What was your reaction when you were informed that Charles David Shaw's DNA was a match to the DNA from the crime scene?
Thank God. I never expected them to tell me that.
Were you angry that he never had to face justice for what he had done?
Yes, he was a horrible person. My sister did not deserve this.
But the bitterness was offset by a sense of gratitude.
What did it mean to you that law enforcement never gave up on Christina's case?
It was absolutely wonderful because this doesn't happen all the time. They wanted to solve the murder like it was their own son or daughter.
And even though the final resolution would come too late for her own mother and father, Anna knows they are now finally at peace.
They are with her and they're happy now. They got their answers. And I just leave it that way.
What kind of a woman do you think Christina would have become if her life hadn't been tragically cut short?
I think she probably would have been caring for other people because she loved doing that stuff. I'm sure I'd have nieces and nephews. Now, especially being older, I just miss her altogether. I wish I had a sister.